Hello there. My name is Corey Colonna, and I have the honor and privilege to serve as Executive Director of Housing and Residential Life at Cal State Long Beach. So happy to welcome you to our campus and welcome you to the Beach family and welcome you to the housing experience here at Cal State Long Beach. This video is just a short introduction of sort of who we are and just sort of in general what all that we take care of related to housing for your students. So I've been doing this work for about 22 years, I think, if I counted correctly. And when I first started this work, I would say that I talked to parents back when I was a hall director, many years ago, and I would talk to parents and I'd say, our role is to be the training wheels on the bike for your students. So we're the ones that just, help you get steady and guide you through that period of time. Over the years, I sort of have changed that perspective a little bit. And I realized that parents and guardians and families and church friends and whatever back at home, they're actually the training wheels. That's kindergarten through 12th grade. Where we want our students to be is in the picture on the right. We want them to be racing down the road, confident and doing, their very best in what they're doing. And so our role is to get them to there. And so I think that our position is more like this. I love this photo. This is my best friend from high school teaching his daughter how to ride a bike. His wife took the photo. And I've just used this over and over again to say, this is actually more appropriately who we are. So the training wheels are off. There's a level of responsibility and students need to be young adults and they have, they're taking that step into adulthood, but they're not really doing it alone. We're right there alongside. So like when you teach someone how to ride a bike, you're going to get them on the bike and you're going to hold on to the back and run along the road with them for a little bit until they feel steady, and then you're going to let go. And that's what we do. We help students get up and going, and we provide them a lot of resources. We provide them a lot of help, and we get them going, right? But what's really key is not that we get them going as much as is that we are there if there's a problem. So as you know, a new bike riders, sometimes they're going to fall. And when they fall, what happens? You go and you help them brush them off, try to renew their confidence, get them back on the bike, and then you're going to run alongside them, holding on for a little while, and eventually you're going to let go. That's the role that we play in housing with our students. And so it's a really important role. It is one that is all about growth and development, identity development, and all those really important things. But we really want to get them by the time they graduate to be, racing down the road and making the world a better place. So just an analogy of how I see the work that we do and why I think it's so important. Our office is made up of really three areas. So we have our administrative services, which includes our operations office. That's the group that you spoke with the most so far. So they're related to applications and they take care of billing and purchasing for the department and all that kind of stuff. So that's the group that is primarily stationed up here in our main office. And then we have our facility staff, which are just pretty self-explanatory, are the folks that take care of our buildings. And then we have our residential life staff that is our education group. They're the people that your students are going to have the most interaction with. And I'm going to speak about them a little bit more than the other two groups. But let me just follow in a little further into an introduction. So I mentioned administrative housing administration. So that takes place in the housing office in our village commons. They also take care of our service desk. So really we're thinking administrative hub, applications, payments, that kind of thing, which I mentioned earlier. They have been the ones that people have communicated with and called all summer long to check on their status or to ask a question, and they support our students in that way. There's not really a great place to put this, but I throw it in here. We are bound by the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, FERPA. And I know this is a new thing for most parents and guardians. And so what that means is that students in the university system, they have rights to privacy over anything that is considered an educational record. And so we are restricted from having conversations with individuals other than the students related to just about anything, but maybe the most basic information. So I mention this because I think sometimes it's frustrating. I'll be honest, it's frustrating for us too. But parents and guardians might want to call in and they want to talk about their, the situation that their student is having, or a challenge they're having, or maybe they've gone through student conduct. And the truth is, what we can do in our office is we can listen. We really can't provide a lot of information back because your student has to have their privacy maintained. Now, I want to share a couple things. So if someone calls and talks to me, I will respond in really general terms. I may say, well, in situations like this in the past, these are the potential outcomes. Or in the past, we've handled it X way, or another way. And so those are some options. So I don't want that to be like, don't call our office, because that is absolutely not part of it. You are part of this process and need to feel confident to do that. But just know that unless the student signs a FERPA waiver, we cannot speak about specific things. And the FERPA waivers are very rare. It obviously you have to engage with the student has to sign off, but it also is bound in time, a relatively short period of time, and it has to be something very specific. And so some people call and say, well, can I just sign a waiver, FERPA waiver for the whole semester and everything related to housing? And the answer is no. It has to be very specific, and it has to be time bound, and generally a relatively short period of time. So it might be the student would sign off and say, you can speak to my parent about my student conduct, that situation that happened in the month of September, and you can talk to them about it for this amount of time. Very, very restrictive. The better way of handling these situations, if parents want to be part of the conversation, which again, I do not do not dissuade you from being part of, is to have that conversation with the student. So a student can invite a parent, a guardian, anyone really, to come into a meeting with someone in our office, and we can have that conversation openly. By inviting that other person in, then that is basically saying that it's okay to speak openly. The other thing I want to point out is, so our office and this administration office mainly will be doing a lot of communication to students, and they will emailing the students at their csulb.edu email. Students are not great at watching their email. Maybe they didn't have to do that in high school, but here it is absolutely vital. The university, not just us, does most of their important notifications of business through the student email. So before your student comes to campus, make sure that's the email that they have on their phone. We try really hard not to inundate students with emails. It's hard sometimes because we'll have communications that we need to get out to students, but they really need to be looking at that email daily. We have so many times where students say, well, I didn't know about that. And I'm like, yeah, but we emailed you a couple times about that situation. And that causes a lot of frustration across both sides. So please, please, please encourage your student to use that email address and to be looking at it and reading it, and maybe to keep it separate from like other things. Don't use that email address for your Amazon, because the more cluttered emails that you get in there, the less likely you are to read the important ones. So that's just a word of advice. I mentioned facilities and technology. Looking at my slide, I'm going to skip around here. Facilities assistants. So we have custodial staff, professional custodial staff, facility mechanics, facility workers, trades folks, which include our electricians and plumbers and such, that are all here, painters, that are all here to support our students. All of our staff will be wearing a uniform. So if they see someone, that they don't recognize, they will know that they work for our university and they work for housing because of what they're wearing. That's a part of our safety protocols. And so, they're going to have minimal interaction with those folks. They actually will see their custodians a lot, and we encourage them to get to know their custodians. These are people who really invest a lot of their time and energy into making the experience for the students better. And so, have conversations with them. And I think it's just a nice relationship across the board. I put in here the work order system. So another thing, so sometimes we have a parent who calls and says, my kid is telling me that they're having issues with the hot water in their shower. And again, welcome those conversations. Please don't hesitate. But I think when your student reaches out to you and says that, I think the first question is, did you put a work order in for that to be repaired? So we have, I think it's 468,000 square feet of property that we manage. In addition to that, we actually manage the outdoor of our buildings as well, the grounds and such. So we're, we keep ourselves pretty busy. But so often when we have people who are, really upset, the work order hasn't actually been placed. And the best way for students to do that is to do it themselves. And so we'll talk about RAs here in a moment. They can talk to an RA. And that's fine. But what I also find, and as a former RA myself, sometimes I'm running to class and a student comes up to me and says, hey, we don't have hot water in this shower. And I'm like, okay, I'll write a work order, but I'm on my way to class. And so again, ideally, that person would stop and put in that work order, but students need to learn to be empowered to do that themselves. And it's really quite simple. They go into the work order system through the same housing portal that they did their application. And what's nice about it is it sort of self-populates a bunch of places in the form. So we've had students in the past who would call in a work order. They call in and say, my name is, Sally, and hot water is not working in my shower. And we're like, which Sally, which shower, which building? And it's just students don't think through all those pieces. And so doing that work order themselves is a surefire way that we get it. We check those work orders several times a day. If it's an emergency, and actually hot water would be a good example. If it's an emergency, they want to go to our service center and we will get a technician there right away, as quickly as we possibly can. If it's during the day, it really is a matter of moments. If it's after hours, it might take a little bit for us to get a technician or a plumber back, but we will do that. But really, work orders, the best way to do that is through the system. We also have another level of assistance, which I've never seen at another university, and I love. I've inherited this when I got here, but we have RAs for technology, and they are staff that we hire, and there's a couple of them per residential village that are make themselves available to help students with technology. So we know so much of their education is going to be done through online sources, and so helping them get connected to the internet, helping them, with some sort of minor computer problems they might have. We're not necessarily the Geek Squad. We're not going to be able to do lots of work on an individual's computer, but things that are really related to the students' access to resources, electronic resources, access to the television streaming system that we have, some of those things, we have staff available to assist. So it's a great resource, and we want students to make sure they utilize that. This next one is safety and security. And so I mentioned, and really at the bottom, I say we are safe, but only if our residents do their part. We're all engaged in building security. And so I had mentioned earlier about, our staff wearing their uniforms or their name tags so people know that they belong in the community. That's really important. But other things to know, all residential buildings are locked 24/7. The only way to access a residential building and student room is with a key card. And so your student's ID, which will be given to them on move-in day, gets them access to their building, to their suite, if there's a suite, into their room. It is what they use for their meal plan. It's what they use at the library. You can put money on it to be able to use at the convenience stores on campus and such. It's really, really an important thing. Students are going to have to get used to carrying it with them all the time. Get a good ID holder, wear it around your neck, whatever the case is, but make sure that they have that with them at all times. That's really important. What's nice about our system here at Long Beach is in housing, we are a keyless operation. So if you lose a key and someone picks it up and they figure out which building it belongs to, they have access to that building. They have access to that room. If you lose an ID, they just need to tell us and we will instantly provide them at least a temporary card, if not a new card. And that automatically turns off the old car. So if someone finds that card and they're like, oh, I know where Bob Wart lives, I could get into Bob's room. it won't work anymore. So it's really, really important. Students are going to lose their IDs from time to time. Obviously, they want to look for it briefly, but we don't want them to go for long periods of time without that ID, because every moment that that ID is unaccounted for, it could be in the hands of someone that we don't want to have possession of that ID. University Police is open all day, every day, 911 on campus, and then there's the 4101 number if students are off campus, and they're here 24/7 and able to respond to any number of emergencies we might have. And then we have some safety programs. So we have a campus escort service. And so in the evenings, in particular, if a student's walking across campus and like, I'm a little creeped out, like it's a little too dark, and they want someone to walk with them or they want to ride, we have students that are employed by the University Police Department that will always work in pairs. And so they would be able to walk a student back to their building or whatever the case might be. And that's available in the evenings. We have the blue light emergency phones, not much to talk about there other than to, maybe mention to students that they should feel free to use them. I feel like it's like a fire alarm. The first time I actually, and I've worked again in lots of other institutions, and I had to actually pull a fire alarm because there was a situation with smoke, and I felt almost wrong to do it because it didn't feel like, you've always told don't mess with those things. But in this case, I mean, those emergency phones are there. It's a direct call to campus dispatch. They stop whatever else they might be doing and answer that phone as a 911 emergency. So something to consider. We have our Res Life staff on call 24/7. So we have RAs and graduate students and professional staff, which I'm going to get to here in a moment, that are available to support students, and that is 24/7 for emergencies, right? Students need to make sure that they have their phone, their cell phone number up to date in the university system. They can do that through the single sign-on process, but that for them is really important to make sure it's up to date, because they will get from time to time emergency alerts. Realistically, thankfully, they'll get more tests than they will ever an alert, but we do have that system in place, and it's important for students to sign up. And then we have campus safety officers. So in addition to the escort services, so we have some security staff, not really police, that will be walking around the campus, walking around our housing buildings, and making sure buildings are secured. So this is really important. Students should pay attention, right? They need to pay attention that once they enter a building, that door shuts behind them. They almost always do, but we want to make sure that they are secured. They shouldn't be opening the door for someone they don't know. And we want people to be respectful of each other and kind. And so this sense of like, oh, I want to open the door for someone is great, and yet counterproductive to safety. So it's one of the things that we'll talk to them about in those first so many days. But, and then finally, I just want to say, if someone sees something that feels odd, feels out of place, they see someone that they think it might be doing something that seems inappropriate or something of concern, call our campus police. We will check on that as soon as we possibly can. Our campus is very safe, but as all university campuses are, they have porous entrances and exits. And so from time to time, we'll have someone who doesn't belong here get on campus. And so our staff is prepared to address those issues, but we need to know about them. So if you see something, say something. I think I said at the beginning, my name is Corey Colonna. I'm the Executive Director of Housing Residential Life. I mentioned that I'm going to spend a little more time talking about our residential life staff, because again, that's the group that will interact the most with your student. In the residential life area, Fatu Olshansky serves as my Director of Residential Life. Fatu has decades of experience. And she really oversees everything related to the student experience outside of those things that we talked about, applications and payments, but it's the roommate agreements and conflicts that might come up, or a student conduct issue, or programmatic things, our curriculum, helping students through homesickness and all of those things. She doesn't do that all alone. She has a really wonderful team. We have our Associate Director, Sarah Drissler, who works on student development. We have our Assistant Director, Hannah Elliott, who does residential education and leadership initiatives. So she's in charge of our curriculum, and we actually have an out of the classroom curriculum that we want students to learn very specific things over the course of their year with us. And then we have our assistant director for conduct and training. So training is all of our RAs and stuff, and then student conduct. So again, from time to time, a student will make a bad decision, and Diana oversees the process that they will go through to remediate that situation. And then we have an administrative coordinator, Jeff Wong, who's also in charge of our desk services. So I'll explain that in a moment. But this is the primary leadership team for our residential life staff. Now, each residential college and area, I should say residential area. We have 3 residential colleges, Parkside, Beachside, and Hillside. But within those, we have them broken up even into smaller groups that are more manageable by individuals. And those are managed by our residential life coordinators. And so Parkside North, which has about 500 students. We have Ian Jacobs, who works there. Parkside Central, which is buildings M, N, P, and Q, is managed and led by Donna Donson-Offit. And then she's also responsible for our first generation community. And then Deja Floyd is Parkside South, which is G, H, J, K, and L, those 5 buildings. And Deja is also responsible in building H is our Black Pan-African Scholars community. And then on the other end of campus, so Carmen Arredondo is at Beachside, so responsible for Pacific and Atlantic, and also our transfer community there. Tori Bicandova is at Hillside East, and which includes Alamitos, Los Cerritos, and Building B, which is our Pride community, our LGBTQ ally community. And then Crystal McIntyre is our Hillside West, which is all the other lettered buildings in Hillside. So A, C, D, E, F, and International House. And again, she oversees the international community. Those are the professional staff. These individuals live on campus, and they are often the first to respond or and are on call during the evenings. And they're people we really want your students to get to know. They can be amazing resources. They're very passionate about student development and passionate about helping students, and they're just a great resource. And I think sometimes folks don't make that effort or don't utilize these folks as much as we'd like them to. Another responsibility they have is they oversee our graduate students, and they oversee our resident assistants, which we'll talk about next. Our graduate students, we have 8 wonderful paraprofessionals. Most of them are getting degrees in a education-related field, and this is as part of that education. They also live in the communities. They serve on-call responsibilities. So an RA might call them for assistance. They're a fantastic crew. And this is a really great opportunity for them and another wonderful resource for students. So they are been successful in their 4-year undergraduate career, and they're in that graduate program. They can serve as mentors as well. And then last but not least, and really when I say that, not least, one of the most important groups is actually our resident assistants. So they're peer leaders who live in the buildings. They're really your student's first friend. They're resources, they're role models. They're there for safety and security. They do rounds and check on things. They interact with students. They're the ones that students should feel that they should go to for just about anything that they have going on. Every building has multiple RAs. So each student is actually assigned a particular RA, but they can engage with any of them. They're here to help. And again, I mentioned they're on call, and so they're available in the evenings. They'll do lockouts. They'll work at our service desk, which I'll mention here in a second. And they go through a pretty extensive training. And then they also, I just mentioned, it's a very selective process. I throw this out as a little bit of a plug for our program. If your student is someone who is good with other people, they should consider applying to be an RA. And that application process is relatively early. It's in actually October, November, I think is when the applications come out, generally I think November. And then the application process rolls into the spring. And the reason we do it so early is there's a leadership weekend, in a sense, where we want our staff to sort of, and our applicants to sort of have some experience of, this is sort of what we're expecting of you. This is what it means to be a leader. And what's wonderful about that, even if they're not don't get selected to be an RA, they have that opportunity to gain some leadership skills. So really, really important. It has outstanding benefits. Of course, I mentioned leadership development just a moment ago. Job skills. This is a great position for students because it teaches them how to interact with others and how to problem solve, and these are skills that they can use in every single career I can think of. And then I will mention the compensation. It is room and board, and there's also an hourly payment piece as well. So it's really probably the best paid position on campus. And we're looking for strong people. We have strong teams, but always looking, for the next student, because these folks all are successful and they move on, right? They graduate. And then we have desk assistants. So those are student assistants. I should mention RAs are only available for a student who's lived with us for at least one full semester, generally a year. But student assistants could be at any time, and it's a paid on-campus position. Things that they do, they sort mail, they handle lockouts during the day between 8 in the morning until like 10 o'clock at night. They do equipment checkouts, so the vacuum cleaner, or we have board games that people can check out, or the ping pong paddles, whatever the case might be. And they monitor some of our social spaces in the buildings that they are officed out of. We are fully staffed as we enter into this new year, but there are positions that become available throughout the semester, but especially in the spring. The reason, not so much because we have bad people, we have great people, but we have people who, maybe they take an internship that's going to take them away from campus, or their class schedule just doesn't work out to be able to work for us. And so I just tell people to keep their eyes open for that. If they're really interested, they can go to one of the desks and say, hey, can you put my name down as someone who might be interested in the future? That's fine. And then, of course, we will be hiring a lot of them for the following fall in the spring. And again, skills required: good customer service, organized, attention to detail, and someone who's just really friendly and helpful, that can be a part of this really important team of support for our students. This is the end of this first video. Again, there will be additional videos, but I really want to emphasize here that our staff is available 24/7, 365 days to handle emergencies, to resolve conflicts, to support our students. I have said to people really often, there is nothing that I can think of that your student should feel as being challenging for them, that they should feel like they have to go through alone. These support systems are here. And so when they call you upset about something, to ask them, did you talk to your RA, or go talk to that Res Life coordinator, Tori, that the director spoke about in that video, or go to the main office and ask for help. Go to the service center and ask for help. There are people here. And I think sometimes we have students who feel overwhelmed and they neglect to reach out to those resources. And that's part of being an adult as well, right? Knowing your resources and utilizing those resources. So please, please, please encourage them to get to know their hall staff and to utilize us as resources as they continue to navigate, which is what is often a difficult time in their lives, right? Where they're growing and understanding who they are and are thinking about their passions, and they're changing and growing. So really important stuff. Thank you so much. There will be additional videos, but thanks for your time right now, and go Beach, be well.